If you're a musician, artist or creative of any kind, I'm sure you have encountered a sort of person. Those who ask for something with no intention of paying, compensating, or in any way bettering your life. Asking with an empty hand, or in the music industry, paying in exposure. In simple terms, paying in exposure means that instead of getting paid money for your work, you're asked to work for free or for little in exchange for a promise that it'll help you get noticed. The idea is that the exposure will lead to more opportunities, but let's be real, that doesn't always happen. Let's dive into the biggest issues with an exposure-based music economy. Problem number one, it's not sustainable. First off, if you're a musician, you're in it for the long haul. Exposure doesn't pay the rent, and it certainly doesn't pay for studio time, gear, or food. In fact, exposure doesn't pay anything. It's not a valid form of compensation for your time, effort, or talent. Working for exposure is a short-term solution that ultimately leaves you, well, with nothing. Problem number two, it's often a tactic for exploitation. Here's the deal. Exposure is a term often used by people in power, promoters, venues, or sometimes even other musicians, to avoid paying you. They might say, hey, you'll get a great exposure from this gig, or this will be great for your career. But in reality, it often ends up benefiting them far more than it benefits you. Problem number three, it undermines the industry. When musicians are expected to work for exposure, it sets a dangerous precedent. If artists are willing to perform or create music without payment, devalues everyone's work in the industry. This trickles down to lower paying gigs and a culture where people stop respecting the value of music. When you don't get paid for your work, neither does anyone else. Problem number four, exposure isn't guaranteed. Exposure doesn't always translate into success. Sure, a few big names may have started out this way, but that doesn't mean it's a reliable route for everyone. If no one actually sees the exposure you're promised, then what's the point? You've left with little more than the same opportunity as before. Problem number five, it disrespects the artist. Let's not sugarcoat it. Paying exposure sends the message that your work as an artist isn't valuable enough to deserve a proper payment. It tells you that your talent doesn't deserve compensation, and that can be demoralizing. At the end of the day, artists are creators, and their work should be treated with the respect it deserves, which includes fair pay. I've reached a point in my life where I have lost my good faith in empty deals. Time is not to be undervalued. Your worth is not to be undervalued. I know how awkward it can feel to ask to be paid for your work, but the awkwardness is because there is a slight expectation that exposure is a form of currency. Exposure is bullshit. You have something that someone wants. That could be time, knowledge, or in the case of music, your unique take on how to create music. If someone is approaching you, then they have already acknowledged that you have value, otherwise they would have just contacted someone else. If they won't pay you, then it wasn't a deal you should have lowered your standards for anyway. Exposure is definitely weaponized by the devious machine of the music industry. The implied exposure from, let's say, a big record label is seen as something very valuable. What is often skipped over is that if a record label is interested in you as an artist, it's because they know they can sell your music as a profitable enterprise. You are the value, not the record label. The music is the important part of the music industry. The industry part is second in name and in measure. So what can we do about all this? The first step is awareness. As artists, we need to advocate for ourselves and say no to offers that don't provide fair compensation. If you're a promoter, manager, or venue owner, it's time to rethink the way that you approach artists. The industry needs to treat musicians with the respect that they deserve. So, in conclusion, paying in exposure is a practice that doesn't benefit the artist, it undermines the value of music, and it fosters a culture of exploitation. As musicians, creators, and fans, we need to demand fair pay and treat artistry with the respect that it deserves. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, share, tell your mum, tell your dog, and I'll see you again soon. We're going to roll and see what happens.